Nikki, please, if you would like to come on and give us your presentation, please.
Okay, good morning everybody, and welcome to the CHSA webinar. What I would like to do very quickly is just give a very simple overview of, for example, the biocides and viricides, and then looking at the differences between cleaning, disinfection and sanitizing products, and within that related to EN test standards, what you should be looking for to validate and to ensure that those claims that your manufacturer has on their products are valid and supported. And then a very short summary to take up from Tracy, who's not able to join us, on hand sanitizers. So without further ado, a lot of people, we hear a lot of terms being bandied around. There is a lot of information being transmitted out to both you distributors and your users. So in terms of what's the difference between a biocide and a viricide, very simply, without getting too technical, a biocide is a term for a chemical agent capable of killing or inactivating or deterring microorganism. It includes more specific terms. For example, you may see things like algicide, bactericide, fungicide, sporicide, and viricide. And examples and common examples of these are chlorine, IPA, isopropanol, quaternary ammonium compounds, and peracetic acid. If you take then a viricide is actually a chemical agent which under defined conditions is capable of irreversibly inactivating viruses. And there are obviously a number of products within the market that meet and have and are viricidal. The difference between a lot of people are confused, and obviously Chris from BICS will take up on the methodology of cleaning. But just from a chemical perspective, we have obviously a plethora of products which meet different cleaning tasks. So we have cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. And you have very specific products for these tasks. So within, you can expect a broad spectrum of activity with cleaning at one end and disinfection at the other. Areas which will have a lower risk of transferring germs will be suited to cleaning alone. So for example, floors, carpets, windows, mirrors, and lighting fixtures. Sanitizing is a step further than cleaning, but not as harsh as disinfection. Sanitizing lowers the number of germs on surfaces or objects to a safe level, measured by public health standards and requirements. And I'll come to that later because this is where EN test standards play a big part. Sanitizing is generally suited and used in food preparation areas or for objects that are related to making or eating food, but also communal areas. So for example, kitchens, restaurants, serving areas, countertops, light switches, etc. Disinfecting kills germs on surfaces or objects. Disinfection uses chemicals to kill germs on those surfaces. This process doesn't necessarily clean dirty surfaces or remove germs, but by cleaning germs on a surface after cleaning. And Chris again will clarify what that means, because disinfectants are not particularly good cleaners, but disinfectants will work exceptionally well on a clean surface. Hence the reason for stage 2 cleaning as an absolute minimum, and particularly in our current environment. So how do you choose the products for sanitizing and disinfecting, and what do you look for? There are again a number of standards that we chemical manufacturers must adhere to in order to put claims on our products. So for example, if we say it is effective against certain types of bacteria or certain types of viruses, we need to test these products. The EN standards that you see on the and should see on any reputable chemical product are basically the test methods that are used to assess the effectiveness of a product against bacteria, fungi, or viruses. They've been developed over a number of years by specific working groups to ensure that all European countries use the same methods, techniques, and conditions to evaluate those products. So hence the reason you get a number of different standards. There are 5 types. There are EN standards for hand hygiene, medical, food industrial, and veterinarian. The most common ones that you will see are those products that are used as what we call a suspension test, and those are EN 1276, EN 1650, and EN 13697. And those are used predominantly in the food and industrial industry. What we are seeing, because of our current pandemic, COVID-19, we are seeing now the use and the testing of products against a couple of medical standards. One is the EN 16615, which uses a mechanical action rather than a suspension test method. So a mechanical action is employing the use of wipes. So it more probably reflects the actual type of cleaning we are doing in our industry. The most common one that we are now seeing, everybody aspires to have their product tested, is EN 14476. And this is a quantitative suspension test for the evaluation of virucidal activity in the medical area. So this is a test that is used already in the medical area, but we are now seeing the crossover into the janitorial side. So in order to have your product approved, you must go through and meet these tests specific to the task that you wish it to clean for. And this is particularly important in today's environment, in that you choose the product that is correct for the task and it is effective and tested to the correct standard. The standards obviously also reflect that certain types of chemical products, you will notice there are different types of dilutions. So in some products you will see a contact time, for example, on a bactericidal potentially used in kitchens under the EN 1276 for 30 seconds. However, if you were to use that product in the situation that we're in now and you wanted it to have virucidal, very often as a chemical manufacturer we're having to retest those products to meet new EN standards, particularly the EN 14476, but you will notice that sometimes the concentration of the formulation will have to be adapted, the dilution of the concentrate for the user, and the contact time generally is extended in order to be effective and pass very rigorous standards within the EN test standard requirements. In order for you, a user, because obviously there are a lot of products already out there, and to understand what is effective and how do I know the claim that the manufacturer on the product is doing what it says it is, and I'm not putting my client or the users at risk. And this is very strictly controlled by the European Chemicals Agency, ECHA, who label claims must be supported by test results and tests appropriate to the area of application. So if you're using a virucidal product and it states it meets and is effective to EN 14476, the tests that that product have had to undergone will reproduce the practical applications that you're going to be doing in that cleaning task. It is also not known very often which organisms, when you're cleaning, are actually going to be physically on the surface. So disinfectants must have a broad spectrum of activity in order to control all the organisms that may be present. Hence the term where you may get a broad spectrum or a fully virucidal product. Examples, as I say, of the different EN tests are all available on our website and generally about, but they are governed by the definitive BS EN standard 14885, which decrees the type of test that must be undergone. So all chemical manufacturers within Europe and the UK will adhere to these so that we have a consistency and consistent range of standards. And this also comes into play with hand sanitizers, as we're fully aware with the current global demand for hand sanitizing and hand washing, it has never been more in the spotlight. So alcoholic hand rubs have undergone a massive surge in demand. And what we have seen is that the World Health Organization has defined a number of recipes and standards that producers can do in order to meet demands across the globe. And this is particularly relevant in developing countries who are not potentially able to, one, access or afford the higher, what we call BPR grade isopropanol. So hence the reason Article 55 was activated, which allows a derogation of the current rigorous testing that hand sanitizers have undergone under the current, a couple of years ago, under the biocidal product regulations. So this has allowed a number of entrants to come into the market using ethanol. However, the World Health Organization, have actually defined that an alcoholic hand rub must be greater, than 60% alcohol content in order to be effective. However, the current hand sanitizers, other than those that actually state they are BPR, and you can recognize these hand sanitizers, which have undergone rigorous testing pre-COVID with a PCS number. They will have this number, which actually decrees that they have been thoroughly tested under the BPR regulations, will generally be carrying EN 1500, which is the sanitizer EN standard, but also they will cover all the CLP labeling, hazards, etc. And this is critical when you are providing guidance on what hand sanitizers to use with your users, your clients, and generally in your workplace. It is interesting because the government and obviously who enacted this Article 55, which allowed users who don't normally, manufacturers who don't normally make hand san. However, that derogation is due to be reviewed on the 29th of September. And obviously, as a manufacturer we've gone through many years of testing and compliance and very big cost investment. We are keen to see the return to a registered place for hand sanitizers, because we are concerned at the number of hand sanitizers in the market that are potentially not meeting the requirements that they should do. And this is particularly relevant when you're applying a product to your skin. So we will just have to wait and see what the government states on that, and as to whether or not that actually comes through. And all in all, I mean, hands obviously need to be washed, and where obviously hand sanitizers are come in is when you're not able to access water and soap. However, I must stress that hand sanitizers work best on clean hands, not dirty hands, and obviously full and proper application, correct amounts, and obviously the WHO recommendation of a minimum of 20 seconds working the hand rub into your hands must be followed in order for a hand sanitizer to be effective where water is not available. So all in all, what we as a chemical manufacturer, and obviously we'll take questions on this later, is that really utilize your chemical manufacturers, speak to them. They are there to help you. We have a team of 22 microbiologists and chemists who are more than happy to help support you, guide you. And as I say, there is a huge amount of information out there, and it can be very daunting trying to disseminate what is correct and what isn't. So please, all I say is please, if you're not sure about something, or you are curious or not confident about what a claim is stating on a product, then go to your manufacturer, speak to your chemical manufacturer, and they will help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. That's been an excellent presentation, and I think we will see a lot of questions on this. So it was very thorough and most welcome, and I think this is why we certainly put the webinar on. So could I introduce Chris Ryan next, please? Chris is going to give his session on the methodology of cleaning. So welcome, Chris. You're up. Hopefully everything is going well with your broadband.
Thanks very much, Lorcan, and thanks, Nikki, for that very good presentation. I'd like to thank CHSA for inviting BICS to partake in this webinar this morning. As Lorcan said, my name is Chris Ryan and I work for the British Institute of Clean Science. Now, BICS are a training and standards provider who have been in operation for 59 years. Our aim is to raise the standards of education and build awareness of the cleaning industry through professional standards and accredited training. Therefore, our aim is to protect the operative. It's all around about providing clean and safe environments, preserving the assets, promoting sustainability, and obviously producing best practice. Now, BICS, along with the CHSA and another 20+ trade and membership associations, are key members of the British Cleaning Council, which are the voice of the industry, who again, priority is to raise professional standards, employee health and well-being, career development and training, improved quality and better procurement practices, which is key to what Nikki was just referring to, and obviously a commitment to promoting high levels of cleaning and hygiene across all environments. I think it's fair to say over the last 6 months, it's been very challenging with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and our industry has never been more in the limelight than it is today. Thankfully, our industry is now recognised as a vital contributor to providing and promoting healthy environments and delivering enhanced hygiene levels to support the ongoing battle in fighting this envelope virus. In regard to the service providers, client expectation has been heightened as they look to providers for experience. You want to know your knowledge and guidance to promote confidence and create reassurance for building users returning back to their environments. As Nikki said, there's been a fair amount of information out there that's been in the public domain, which is useful, supportive, but at times it has caused some confusion. So as Nikki referred to, it's key to obviously speak to your manufacturers and your suppliers to get that help and support. At BICS, we received a number of calls from members during the pandemic. And often the question being asked is in regard to products and equipment, and in respect of that, our advice has always been in line with our training, and that is that you must engage and speak with your manufacturers and your suppliers. They're there as they're the industry experts. They have the knowledge, the experience, and they can back it up with the scientific data to support what they can provide. So we're here today to support the CHSA in getting the message out to customers that they are there to help, to support and advise customers and basically give confidence in the products that they choose. In terms of the cleaning industry, as a £50 billion industry, we have service providers work in a whole host of different operational environments, and it's not always the case of one size fits all. So it's very important that manufacturers and suppliers are involved in helping choose the products, because they're in the best position to help and support and advise in what is the best solution to the current situation. We have to make it clear that BICS does not and will not promote or endorse any individual manufacturer or supplier within industry. We operate as an independent training and standards provider, and I think it's important that we remain neutral in order to support the industry fairly. As with all our training and documentation, we always stress the importance of engaging with manufacturers and suppliers in order to give you the right advice, and when it comes to products and equipment, to deliver products and services effectively and efficiently. I've worked in the role, I've worked operationally, and the supply chain, the relationship is it's a very important cog, and it needs to be part of that service delivery in order to get it right. I think it's important for service providers to work closely with the manufacturers and suppliers You need to build up a relationship. It's about getting the right tools, the right products, the training, the level of support. It's all part and parcel of that particular package. All the manufacturers and suppliers, they have a responsibility to demonstrate their experience and knowledge. They will help you to choose compatible products, products that are creditable, products that meet any testing regulation. Nikki went into all the detail around the European standards and the EN numbers. It's all vitally important. Everything needs to be independently tested and proven to give us the most effective and efficient results. They'll also provide you with the relevant documentation, such as your safety data sheets, your technical information sheets, microbiological microbiological profiles, as well as any additional testing documentation from ongoing scientific research. It's important to ask for this evidence. When looking for products, it's important that you get that empirical data to back up the product. It demonstrates that the product is creditable and the supplier is creditable. Manufacturers are there to advise on the particulars of PPE, what's required for both preparation and usage. A good supplier will support you with dilution charts. Correct dilution is important, it's imperative. You need to ensure that we're using the product at its optimum performance level. Incorrect dilution will simply just result in waste and increased cost. So they're there to help and provide and support you. They'll also give you process guides and training. It's an important relationship that needs to play an integral part of any service delivery. Not only choosing the correct product is important and the equipment, but we need to ensure that we give the team the right tools for the job. So that combined with the correct processes and methodology, such as ensuring that we have all the risk assessments and method statements are in place and up to date. Obviously including the current control measures for COVID-19, social distancing, robust hand hygiene and respiratory hygiene, and obviously covering any enhanced cleaning arrangements. These systems of controls have been introduced to effectively minimise risk and create safer environments. We need to always apply best practice for effective cleaning. Best practice entails the use of creditable products that adhere to any current proven testing methods and ensure the process and methodology of applying effective cleaning process is followed. Our operatives need to be trained in the product and the equipment that they use. We need to always ensure that we follow manufacturers' guidelines for chemical competence and correct dilution rates. We need to ensure our operatives are following colour coding guide. Am I still with you?
You are.
Right. Sorry, it was going all blurred then. Thanks, Kathy. Where was I? Okay, so we need to ensure that all operatives are trained in the control of cross-contamination, because obviously this will ensure that the spread of any infection is minimised. We need to follow colour coding guidelines to ensure there's no risk of cross-contamination. Always follow the clean to dirty path. Clean from the cleanest areas first to the dirtiest in order to minimise any risk of cross-contamination. How to use systematic overlapping passes so that we can ensure that the surface is effectively and efficiently cleaned. We need to ensure our operatives and the clients understand any desired outcomes and expectations and how to achieve acceptable standards. I think communication is vital. We need to communicate regularly to our operatives, the clients and the customers, as the communication will help to build the reassurance moving forward. Selecting the products and equipment and applying the control measures and adhering to best practice will help and contribute to stopping the virus entering the facility and being transmitted. I feel collectively we all have a role to play in keeping buildings open and operational and providing safe environments. Our role as service providers has never been so critical, and the recognition for our industry has grown significantly over the last 6 months. Cleaning is very much seen as a positive function in these challenging times, and its role in breaking the chain in the battle to fight COVID-19 while protecting our operative, our customer and our clients has never been more so. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. That you finished?
Yeah.
Great. No, that Absolutely perfect, Chris. I think you hit a number of really important points there. I mean, we really have to keep industry going in the UK while we're treading water here, and to keep factories open, we've got to keep factories clean, and the whole process around sanitizing, having the correct products, liaising with your contract cleaner, with your cleaning manufacturer, is so vital, because in industry, we take this for granted that something comes out of a bottle, and we'll keep our workforce safe. And equally, trying to get people back to offices. There's huge apprehension of getting into offices and keeping them clean. So I think it's absolutely vital we have the right products in the right dilution rates for the right application. Just to simply keep our employees safe, but to give confidence that these products do work and that people will be kept safe. So I think you covered a lot of things that our listeners out there were wanting to hear, because you can have one voice from a manufacturer of a chemical, one from a distributor, but actually hear what is the best practice out there and how to deal with these things, and the step-by-step process. So really good, Chris. Thank you for that. So Kathy, we're now down to questions. So okay. I'm not privy to what's come in, but can you run the question session from here?
I'll just start with a related but really basic question, considering the context that we're in at the moment. And there are there's comments about lots and lots of different product claims being made in the marketplace at the moment. And just to start with a couple, is there a product that is known, proven to kill coronavirus? Has that been proven? And what about residual effects? There are a lot of claims about residual effects of products. Do they stand up?
Okay, I'll answer those questions. Coronavirus is a large family of enveloped viruses, which include SARS, MERS, etc. And there are animal and there are human coronaviruses. SARS-CoV-2 is a virus of the current outbreak, of which it is known as COVID-19, which is the name of the disease it causes. The vaccinia virus has been used to test virucidal activity because it is the closest surrogate that we can get when we are testing against, and that has been underwritten by WHO and the EN standard EN 14476 because it matches the vaccinia virus is from the same family of enveloped viruses. So it's the closest we're going to get to be able to test, because unfortunately COVID-19 is a novel virus. We know nothing about it at the moment. And this is a challenge that we're seeing with developing a vaccine because we haven't got any definitive virus strain to test against. So we are having to use surrogates, which is quite normal. We at Evans have worked a lot with animal livestock across African swine fever, avian flu, and this is very often where you don't have a definitive test, you take the closest surrogate you can, which replicates and matches the current disease outbreak. So the challenge is, in our experience at the moment, because of the novel nature of this virus that we're in COVID-19, we are not aware of any single product that will specifically kill COVID-19. However, there are products that are tested, as I say, to the vaccinia virus, which are effective. But it is, as we know, the COVID-19 is very sensitive. Once it's out there on surfaces, it is very easily broken down by detergents. So hence the reason, as Chris was saying, that the first stage is obviously cleaning with a good quality detergent, and then you disinfect. You can then obviously subsequently disinfect should you feel that necessary. And again, we'll come on to that because I know there are potentially some other questions as to fogging and misting. So in terms of residual value, residual contact left on a surface. Yes, once you have cleaned and disinfect any product, quaternary based product, there will be a residual level. However, as soon as anybody enters that area, touches, opens a window, etc., they will be contaminated. Therefore, you will have to clean again. So we are not, in our experience, nor have we seen any data or test data to prove the absolute residual value for longer than you would have after you've immediately cleaned with no external contamination. So it's a very difficult subject, but yes, there is some residual value, but only immediately after you've cleaned, and provided there are no then contaminants in that area, which would then subsequently you would have to go in and clean. And that could be as simple as somebody entering the room, etc., touching a surface that immediately introduces a contaminant and organic soiling to that surface.
Okay. So in terms of you talked a bit about, or you talked to, explained the various EN numbers and things, and we're talking about product claims on the market. How do people verify the product claims? And when it comes to the EN numbers, should they be stamped on the product? Should they be on all the product labeling as well?
Most good manufacturers will obviously be keen. We are all keen to make sure that our products are specific to the task required. And on the majority of the concentrates that you're making up or the ready to use, they should state, we at Evans take the practice that we actually put that on our bottles. So very often, for example, our kitchen sanitizer, it will actually state effective, tested and approved and effective to EN 1276 with a contact time, and potentially, if it's a concentrate, an actual recommended dilution rate to ensure that you get the effectiveness to that standard. And this is why it's important to choose the correct product for the correct task. So if you're looking to clean but not disinfect, there's no point using a disinfectant. You would be using a general purpose cleaner. However, if you need to disinfect, and it may well be in a kitchen, you would generally use a bactericidal with what's required to meet and reduce the microorganisms which may be present and may be harmful in that environment, compared to a product that you would use maybe front of house, which may have a very different EN number. So it is imperative, and this again is where training, liaison and relationship with your manufacturers is imperative, and your distributors, in that they are guided. We will train our distributors and our distributor sales teams to ensure that they are providing the best possible recommendations for the task, because we are also conscious that obviously everybody is very concerned about COVID-19 and the desire to disinfect, but there is a real concern that we are heading towards overuse of disinfectants where it is not absolutely required. So for example, in a building that's lain empty since the lockdown, may potentially not require to be using a fully broad spectrum virucidal. But again, you use the good practice and best practice of stage cleaning and disinfection as always. That is always the first guard, and then you look at potentially where there is a potential suspect of COVID-19, either within the community or in that area, then you would use a specific COVID-19, a virucidal broad spectrum disinfectant as part of your cleaning process.
Okay, that leads neatly into one of the other questions that we just had. Are there any risks with the amount of disinfectant and cleaning chemicals that are being used in workplaces at the moment?
Yeah. I think the challenge is, and it will always be, is that there is a real responsibility to employers to ensure that all their operators who are using chemicals, because we are talking professional chemicals, and obviously in the current environment, contact time and dilutions have never been so important. So this must be thoroughly trained, and it's ensuring that people understand that the contact time, when it says 5 minutes, we mean 5 minutes, because that's what we've tested our product to. So 1 minute isn't going to cut it, but 5 minutes is absolutely imperative. And I think as well, again, manufacturers can help, but the onus is very much on the employer and the user, is that making sure that there is a full risk assessment done prior to any use of chemicals, particularly with people who may not potentially have used chemicals before. So for example, we're seeing in schools, teachers are now having to, between classes, disinfect multiple touch points, contact points, surfaces between classes. This is something that's very new to teachers. So for us, we're finding a lot more training is being asked from ourselves in order to make sure that these new users, are understanding and know how to use a product safely but effectively to do the job it's designed to do.
Okay. And another related question, phrases like environmentally friendly, natural ingredients, biocide-free, what do they all mean? Do they work? Is there evidence for that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, all these terms have to be investigated, because in order to put any qualification or claim on your product, you, as a chemical manufacturer, lay yourself open to investigation, query. And again, I would say if you're not sure and it is not clear on the product or the supporting material, if there's no test data. So for example, if it's quat-free, then you would be able to see this from the safety data sheet. If there are claims of in terms of contact time, effectiveness against specific viruses or fungi, yeasts, or bacteria, then this you need to seek out and should be readily accessible by the manufacturer is a micro profile. And every claim that we put on our product has to have a micro profile. So anything that we state that it meets particular, for example, it is effective against Staphylococcus aureus, COVID, 19 in terms of the surrogate virus vaccinia, would actually have to be backed up by proven test data in the form of a microprofile. We at Evans, we are a UCAS accredited lab and are able to test bactericidal products, but we are not licensed to test viruses. As you can imagine, viruses are very, very different, also very volatile, also very dangerous. So we externally go to registered and accredited test labs who will be able to undertake our viral testing for us. And I think this is important, that you need to seek out, and if you're not able to get ready accessibility to the micro profile, then I would strongly suggest that product is not supported with the claim. So you need to really be very, very clear that you need to see that micro profile in order to back up. That is a requirement if they are saying and stating they are effective against a specific virus or bactericide.
Okay, thank you. Then we've got some questions coming in about applications, and there's lots of discussion that has been around at the moment about fogging and misting and them being sort of perfect solutions for applications, nice and easy. Do they work? Are they safe? Are they appropriate?
I think the latest development, and it's interesting, the World Health Organization, have come out very strongly and do not recommend fogging and misting because there is no known test data, particularly in our current environment. Yes, we test our products. We test our products via through mopping, spraying, via trigger sprays, etc. But when you take it to a new level and you attempt to put, for example, a quaternary ammonium compound disinfectant through a fogging device, we at Evans do not have the test data to support the effectiveness, the efficacy of the product via that device. And I think more importantly, there are concerns as to the effect that it may have on respiratory and ingestion when you're dispersing on a much greater scale in a sealed area, a quat-based disinfectant. So until there is data and to support the effectiveness, then we at Evans would not recommend our products as a standalone process using the fogging or misting devices. That certainly at no point would we ever advocate, in particular in the current environment that we're in, the COVID pandemic, is that it would be a standalone. It must never ever replace the stage 1 of cleaning, stage 2 of disinfection. Fogging or misting can be considered only as a belts and braces and as a third option, but only after a very rigid risk assessment has been undertaken. But currently, at the moment, we do not have any test data that we would recommend our products being used in these devices in the current pandemic.
Thank you. Chris, have you got something to add there?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, actually, in terms of what Nikki's saying, because fogging and misting, obviously, it completely depends on the environment that you're working within and using the relevant chemical. But there's also considerations to be taken in respect of moisture content. So, for instance, you won't be using a product with high moisture content in offices and schools and one thing and another, where you've got PCs, electricity, and so on and so forth. But it's interesting, like fogging and misting, when used in a pest control environment, it's all licensed and governed. Yeah, what we've seen with COVID-19 is we've all seen pictures and videos of people just walking into areas with a fogging machine and just randomly spraying everything, and that's deemed as being acceptable, when clearly it isn't. As Nikki has highlighted, it is a 2 or 3 stage process, especially within sort of like food industry environments and the likes. So yeah, I think that's a really valid point, Nikki.
Yeah, I think just to follow up from Chris, I mean, we obviously at Evans, we have a large livestock protection, and as Chris rightly says, that fogging and misting on a grand scale is very often used in poultry. However, that is a very different environment to an office or a care home where you've got soft furnishings and you've got obviously potentially vulnerable people. There is not enough evidence, unlike as Chris was saying, in the livestock, the testing has been done, and to be blunt, the testing used in livestock protection when they used this fogging and misting of poultry sheds or pig farms in the case of African swine fever, they actually use sentinel beasts to go in and see and be able to test if after the fogging and misting and cleaning. And again, the livestock industry does not use fogging or misting as a standalone. There is thorough cleaning of obviously organic soilage prior to that, disinfection, and then as a third operation, fogging and misting. But then they actually use then sentinel beasts to come in to actually understand whether or not it has worked. So if the sentinel beast remains healthy, then it means it is clear. However, if the beast becomes ill again, then it means that the virus is still present, so they have to repeat the process. I can't quite see us doing that with human beings. Hence the reason why we are very wary as a chemical manufacturer to suggest until we have done our own data, and I would stress that we are well in and down into trials and tests using various fogging machines, because it does replace it does potentially have some place in cleaning. However, we have to truly understand the efficacy of the product and the implications on the external environments as well prior to endorsing any of our products being used in this kind of environment.
In a related question, there are like other quick fix concepts that maybe you may say are very similar, but sort of like individual disinfection booths or electrostatically charged sprays and things. Do you have any comments? Are we talking in the same category here?
It pretty much reflects. I mean, we are seeing booths. We're seeing chlorine dioxide spray booths, nightclubs, where people are being sort of asked to come through these prior to entering the premises. The danger, I think, with all these quick fixes is that we potentially they become they encourage complacency within the people, and then people think, well, we've been disinfected, we've gone through the spray booth, and therefore we then don't require so much social distancing, we don't wash our hands as frequently. So the danger is we actually encourage complacency, and we actually endanger and potentially increase the spread of COVID. I think, again, it comes down to there's not enough test data to support them within the UK and Europe that has been endorsed, and until that is the case, then there is really nothing to replace good old, thorough, traditional cleaning and disinfecting, and potentially disinfecting again, particularly in the current environment, to ensure that everyone is safeguarded.
Okay.
It's true. I mean, we're aware of like shopping malls that have introduced like a spray booth where you walk through and suddenly you become immune to COVID-19. If that person's a carrier and then goes and coughs and sneezes, that contamination on. I'm pleased to say they have now been withdrawn from them particular environments. But you might find that they're needed in other environments where you've got like a heightened hygiene level in terms of working within a specific environment, whether it be food industry or petrochemical or one thing or another. So I think at the end of the day, as with any task or process, it's all down to the risk assessment, and we need to ensure that we've got a robust and safe application is deployed at all times. And it's all about ensuring that the staff are trained and all the relevant assessments are in place, the risk assessments, the method statements, and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting subject, but it's very emotive, because how would you feel being sprayed with a disinfectant spray when you're walking into a shopping mall? It's not something people really look forward to, is it?
So there's clear discussion about product claims, about methods of application and things. Do you think, and there's question marks over a lot of those things, are the authorities doing enough? Should we be asking the authorities to do more, to be clear about what's acceptable or not acceptable? What works or doesn't?
Obviously, again, if anybody is concerned about anything they see, they feel is not correct, or they feel unsure about it or feel uncomfortable, then we would always say refer to your chemical manufacturer. We are keen to help. We know what to look for in terms of both the micro profiles. Dig in. We have people who within our teams in the research and development, they are very good. They will delve in. If we feel there is a case to take it further, then obviously at the end of the day, we have the European Chemical Agency, you've got the Health and Safety Executive, you've also got your local trading standards. We've also, these are all the areas. You've also got the associations like the CHSA. Within the chemical industry, we have BACs. If we're uncomfortable about something, we will, and we feel there is validity in that complaint that we're unsure of, we will, as a company, as a manufacturer, look to take it and escalate it to see and ensure, because at all times we want to make sure that our industry is always held in the best and highest regard, and that the information we give out and the labelling gives assurance that the product is safe and effective at all times.
Okay. Have you got anything to add there, Chris?
Sorry, I got kicked out again. I disappeared. I think, in terms of what Nikki was saying, in terms
It's not.
It's not working.
On like trading standards, HSE, ECA, and it's all about it. But in terms of being policed, it's not actually policed. So, you know, there comes difficulty. I think that
You're live again.
am I in?
You're back again.
You know, it's generally all down to the service provider to be able to demonstrate, you know, as a service provider, that you have responsible service delivery for the use of creditable products, trained operatives, robust health and safety, relevant insurance policies, proven track records, testimonials, you know, and evidence of quality management systems, all demonstrated through records and accreditation. So, you know, it's very much self-governed.
Okay. Okay. I'm conscious of the time. So just a couple of questions about product supply. Are there any issues? I mean, obviously during the height of the pandemic earlier this year, there was a lot of squeeze on a lot of different products. Are there any issues that we can foresee in the supply chain now?
Yeah, absolutely, Kathy. I mean, obviously it depends how what happens with regards the infection and the disease outbreak, because a lot of the raw materials used, a lot of the active ingredients come from all over the world, and obviously that has implication. As we saw in the height of the peak, and as it transcended across a number of countries, then it became much more difficult to access and get deliveries and actually get the volumes we needed in order to make the products to combat and help against COVID-19. At the moment, it is relatively stable, and I say relatively because probably the biggest area that still remains a massive challenge is on the packaging components, trigger spray heads, hand lotion pumps, a lot of plastic components going into sprays remain a massive challenge in terms of supply, just because of the sheer volume. It's a global pandemic. We've had a lot of factories have had issues maintaining demand, and obviously as we get back into opening up more and more businesses, the demand for cleaning and the type of products being required increases dramatically, particularly spray products that don't require any dilution by anybody, lowers the risk assessments required. It's easier to hand a teacher a ready-to-use product than a product that they potentially have to handle concentrates, etc., which we just wouldn't. The risk there is far too great. So therefore, what we are seeing is very much that the hand lotion pumps, the trigger spray heads remain and are likely to remain well into the next year. And again, as I say, the active ingredients, a lot of the DDAC, the BAC 50s, which are used in disinfectants, which is an active ingredient, could potentially become difficult again if we have a global upsurge. But as I say, the stocks are good at the moment. We have obviously, as a manufacturer now within the supply chain, we have increased quite substantially our production output to meet demand. We obviously have now got a much greater range of what we call COVID-19 effective against the tested products. So again, in the early days, we just had maybe a small narrow range of effective virucidal products. We now have a much greater range, and I would imagine that would be the same for most chemical manufacturers. So there's a greater number of options now, albeit at different contact times and dilutions in order to be effective for the EN 14476, which is the test standard for coronavirus. So again, it's just really, it's difficult, but we've got good relationships, and I think this is really where you're, again, liaising with your chemical manufacturers, your distributors if you're a user. If you're looking to bring back more people back into your workplace, then make sure that you speak to your distributor, give them forecasts. Likewise, distributors, manufacturers, working and liaising with each other to make sure that we've got enough in the supply chain stocks that we can produce and meet any increase in demand over the coming months.
Okay, thank you. That covers, or at least we've touched on all of the questions that we've had in advance and the ones that have come in through the chat today. In a sentence, is there a final comment from each of you that you just want people to be aware? Oh, there's just another one. Give us your final sentence and I'll just check this last question that's just come in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, really, we're still facing very challenging times. You know, we've not got through this. You know, we're seeing a daily increase in cases. That, you know, the fear is a second spike, which clearly we need to avoid at all costs. You know, we need to do everything that is reasonably practical in order to ensure that the places where we operate, you know, we provide them with a good level of service, we provide a safe environment for people to go back to work and feel reassured and confident in going back to work. And as Nikki says, you know, if you've got any questions in relation to the scientific data and the likes, then go and speak to your suppliers or your manufacturers. Generally, your suppliers may not have the full level of information that you require, but they will have the direct link to the manufacturer or to the labs, who can then give you the relevant information in order to move forward.
And Nikki, in your, if you've got a closing sentence, the question has come through to everyone on the chat, and it's about the use of hand sanitizers and 60% alcohol if soap and water is not available. But the government being fairly quiet on it. You did touch on it when you did your intro, but if you could come back to that again, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the hand sanitizer, obviously at the start of the outbreak, the pandemic, key to this, as we saw years ago in the Ebola outbreak, basically hand hygiene became exceptionally important and still remains, and should really be within our industry, particularly in the food hygiene, food prep, but also in the healthcare side. And I think basically the World Health Organization, when the use of an alcohol hand sanitizer is to be used, is when you're not able to use soap and water. But you've got to make sure that a couple of things: correct dose, contact time, 20 seconds, and the correct technique is used for it to be effective. Hands, where possible, where you do have soap and water, need to be used. But the WHO organization came out with this, the new reduction in alcohol, which allowed accessibility. So basically, when the EN 1500 test method, which is used for assessing the range of hand gels and rinses with a 30-second contact time, it's found that formulations should contain greater than 80% ethanol or greater than 60% IPA. However, with obviously with the pandemic, who then allowed the reduction and the use of ethanol, and the line of statement from WHO is that any hand rub being formulated must have greater than 60% ethanol. It doesn't require, a lot of these hand sanitizers are not tested, they're not approved, but WHO have allowed that at the moment. But as I say, this was under this Article 55 derogation that is up for review. I think, and by judging by all contacts, because we're now heading to Brexit, which is the next challenge we all have to deal with, that is likely to be extended till the end of the year. So as I say, as long as it has greater than 60% ethanol, as regarded by WHO have got some excellent links on their website. So if again you're unsure, you can't access information, if you go on the WHO website, they provide some excellent guidance and some very good statements with regards to fogging, misting, and general recommendations on process, on the methodology of cleaning.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. And it just leaves it to me now really to thank our panelists, Nikki and Chris. I thought the information that you've put out there has been excellent, and it's certainly enlightened everybody here today, and that's what we set out to achieve. So heartfelt thanks from the CHSA for joining us, and thank you for all the people who've joined the webinar. If there's anything specific that we didn't get in on the questions, if you want to email Secretary at CHSA Lorraine, or go to our website, you'll see a contact page, and we'll endeavour to get some information back to you if you so require. So that just leaves me to say thank you and goodbye. And if Chris and Nikki want to stay on, and Lorraine and Kathy, that would be great. So thank you very much and have a good day.